right, good evening, everyone. Let's see, I think so far we have one viewer. All right, there we go, starting to pick up. We're at 16 right now. I hope everyone's doing all right. So we got about 5 minutes before the brief begins. So if y'all want to start commenting, I'd love to hear where everyone's from. And I want to thank y'all for joining us tonight. All right. Okay, we have Barry from Montclair, New Jersey. Welcome, Barry. We have Ian from Clinton, New Jersey. Okay. All right, there we go. Don't be shy. Tell us where you're from. All right, Natalie from Kansas City. You got Sam from Pennsylvania. All right, welcome everyone. Alexi from Virginia. All right, we have Randy with Go Army Beat Navy. That's what I'm talking about, Randy. Okay, we have some old grads in here. Hello, Connor. Yes, so yeah, please don't be afraid to like and comment. We'll make sure that we answer your questions tonight. So we got just about 3 more minutes before we get started. So do we have any current applicants watching right now? Do we have anybody that's already opened an application? Any juniors or seniors? Or maybe anyone that's already been accepted and is just here to get some more information? Okay, Jackie has a brother from the class of 2005 and a son, hopefully, for 2027. All right, that's awesome. Logan, it looks like Logan is one of the current applicants. We have Tim as a proud father of a 2020 grad. Congratulations. Okay, we got some retired first sergeants in here. Hopefully my uniform is on point. I know the first sergeant's watching right now. We have Sam. Okay. Sam says he remembers me from a tour in the past. I'm glad that I didn't disappoint during that tour. Thank you, Sam. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I think we've had enough people tune in. So I'll do a quick introduction. So my name is Captain Isaac Wary. I'm currently serving as a Northeast Diversity Outreach Officer, and I'm very excited to get to speak to y'all tonight about West Point. So like I stated earlier, please don't be afraid to comment with your questions. Make sure that you like the feed, and we'll go ahead and get started with these slides. And thank you again for tuning in tonight. Alright, so this is the agenda for tonight. So we're going to talk briefly about the West Point experience. We'll talk about what West Point has to offer. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Academy and our history. Then we have the privilege of having Cadet Lauren Clark with us tonight, and she's going to talk about cadet life. And then we'll finish it up with the application process. So I can tell y'all what all we're looking for in our applicants and what you can do to hopefully get into West Point. Okay, so the West Point experience. So when y'all think about West Point, I'm sure there's a couple of different adjectives that come to mind. But West Point, what we're all about is developing cadets to be leaders. So we're often referred to as the Leadership Institute of the World, and there's a reason for that. So Like I stated earlier, so our mission is to educate and inspire the Corps of Cadets so that each graduate is a commissioned leader of character, committed to the values of duty, honor, country, and prepared for a career of professional excellence and service to the nation as an officer in the United States Army. So really the key takeaway from our mission statement is commissioned leader of character. And you're probably going to hear that statement multiple times throughout this brief tonight. And that's because that's what we're all about, building leaders and most importantly leaders with character. And so as part of that process, how West Point does that is, you're challenged not only academically but also mentally and physically, so that by the end of your 47-month experience, you are that leader that's ready to go out into the Army and lead America's sons and daughters. So what do we offer? So we offer it's a 4-year education. When you graduate from here, you graduate with a Bachelor's of Science degree, and I know for a lot of people, they wait for scholarships, and that's a huge determining factor as to where they're going to go. But every person that's accepted into West Point gets 100% scholarship, per se. And so that covers not only room and board and tuition, but it pretty much covers every expense that you can think of that you'll need at the time while you're here. So that also includes all your medical, your dental, and on top of that, you receive a monthly stipend. So I can't think of too many other schools that pay you to attend. And so I know from my experience here, I graduated in 2016. I didn't have to pay for anything. You could literally show up with just the clothes on your back and you receive a laptop, everything you need. Haircuts, everything, dry cleaning, it was all provided for you while you're here. So these are some of our rankings, as you can see, so I'm not going to read these out loud. I think you can read them for yourself, but there's a couple that really stand out to me. And so the two that I'm most proud of on here is best classroom experience and #1 most successful professors. And we'll elaborate on some of this stuff later on, but for like classroom experience, I know the classroom sizes were pretty small. In most of my classes, I had about 12 to 15 cadets in it, and that was an awesome learning environment, and you can get the one-on-one time that you need from your professors. And then the other thing is having we're ranked #1 most accessible professors. I always like to tell a story about my experience as a cadet. So I was a mechanical engineering major while I was here, and there was a class called dynamics that I really struggled in. It's pretty much like physics on steroids, where you're trying to calculate force acting on an object that is rotating, moving, spinning, doing all these different things. And so I was struggling in that class, and I was also a professional procrastinator. Can you imagine that? But I waited till the last minute to work on the project, and it was due on Monday. I started on it on Friday, Saturday, lost, have no idea what's going on. I called my professor on Saturday afternoon. I'm like, "Sir, I know it's the weekend, but I'm stuck. I really need help, and I know this project is worth a lot of points." And so he pretty much stopped what he was doing and took the time to come to the classroom on the weekend to tutor me for about 4 or 5 hours until I was at the point where I could complete the project on my own. And that's just one of many different stories that I could tell you about professors going out of their way to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful while you're here in the classroom. So on top of everything else that's provided, the other thing that I think is pretty cool that West Point offers, and the #1 reason why you come here, and that's to serve. But it's 100% job placement upon graduating from here. So that means you don't have to worry about finding a job or anything like that. You get to do a pretty awesome job right after you graduate. And so there's 18 different branches. That's what we call it, jobs, but we call them branches. So there's 18 different ones that you can choose from upon graduating. So you can see the list over here. So I commissioned as an ordnance officer, which is one of the 3 logistics branches, but there's a bunch of different jobs that you can do. And then as you progress in your Army career, there are more and more different positions that will become available to you down the line as well. But if you want to be an engineer, or if you want to, you like computers, you can join the Cyber Corps. If you like dealing with logistics like myself, there's transportation, quartermaster, ordnance, and there's infantry, of course. And if you like to be on the ground, um, rolling around in the mud. I'm just kidding. But yeah, there's a bunch of different ones that you can choose from. So now we're going to talk a little bit about West Point and its history. So this is the beautiful West Point campus right here. You can see that we're located on the Hudson River. We're about 45 miles north of New York City. So that's a popular destination whenever cadets have time on the weekends. And there's trip sections and different things that you can go up there for. But West Point was established in 1802 by Thomas Jefferson. He saw that there was a need for more engineers within the military, and at the time the United States didn't have a school that was focused on engineering, and so he established West Point to do just that, to produce officers that were engineers that could go out and serve. So when we first started, we only offered engineering. Everybody was an engineering major, but over the years we've added to those majors, and we'll talk about that a little more down the line. But West Point was a strategic location during the American Revolutionary War, and it was chosen by George Washington. And really, this was he described it as, at that time, like the most important post during the American Revolutionary War. And so fast forward into 1817, that's when Colonel Sylvanus Thayer established a curriculum, and a lot of the things that he established back in 1817 are still put into practice today, such as like the Thayer method, which is how cadets are taught. They teach themselves, and then they go to the classroom and ask questions, and that encourages cadets to be independent and to be able to problem solve by themselves. And then also West Point is the original model for the other service academies. So yeah, so if you wonder why the application process is so similar, they got it from us. All right, so as I've discussed multiple times, we're all about developing leaders. And this is just a small list of some of the leaders that have graduated from here. Both they go out into the Army and they do great things within the military, but of course the Army doesn't have a monopoly on leadership, and so a lot of our graduates, they go out and they do other great things in industries outside of the military as well. We have some graduates that are in NFL. We have some that have gone to NASA, like Buzz Edrin over here. And then we have some CEOs. The current Johnson & Johnson CEO, Alex Gorksey, he's a class of '82 grad. And of course, if you're a basketball fan, everybody knows Coach K. So he's a class of 1969 grad. All right, so how do we develop these leaders of character? So how we do that is we have 4 different pillars, and each pillar has a dedicated staff and faculty that are there to develop cadets specifically within that pillar. So of course we have academics, we have physical, and we have military. And the 4th pillar, character, that's kind of entwined into everything that we do. All right, so now we're going to cover the cadet life portion, and Cadet Clark's going to take over.
Hello, everybody. So as he stated, I'm Cadet Clark. I don't think you can quite see me yet. How do I move forward? Okay, so we're going to get into cadet life. I am a senior, so otherwise called as a firstie, in case you didn't know. So here's my class ring, in case you wanted to see what it looked like. And we're just going to go over a couple different things, and I'm going to share my experience as a cadet. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, in case anybody's wondering. So, of course, there's a lot of weird things about being a cadet, and one of the things is the way that we name ourselves. So when you're a freshman, you'll be called a plebe, a sophomore, a yearling, a junior, you'll be referred to as a cow, and then finally when you're a senior, you'll get to be a firstie. And each one of those is different, and so the reason why we have different names and it means different things is because you have different privileges depending on which class you're in. So as freshmen, you have to wake up a little bit earlier to help out with duties a little bit more, whereas by the time you become a first D, now you're finally allowed to have a car and leave post a little bit more often when we are in not COVID times. So this is what a typical day looks like. So again, like I said, the plebes or even a lot of the athletes get up early, normally around 5:20, so that way they can start their day. They will get up to work out or sometimes to help clean up around the barracks. It's a plebe duty or freshman's duty to do those things, and it's really a way to build team cohesion and a start at being a leader. Everybody takes different times to lead through whatever activity that is, whether it's cleaning the bathrooms, sweeping the halls, or taking out the trash. Then we'll have mandatory breakfast for all the plebes. We'll have lunch, which is normally mandatory, but it has not been in COVID times. We're really excited to get that back really soon here. And then on Thursdays, there's mandatory dinner. There's lights out at TAPS at 11:30, which means that somebody's going to come around, make sure everything's good, and we're ready for bed, so that way we can get up the next day and do it all over again. As you see, there's different times for different things, and there's a big block of personal time. A lot of that will be spent doing homework if you don't manage your time correctly. But if you do, you can spend a lot of that time doing extracurricular activities, playing sports, or developing your own interests and hobbies. So, in referring to the academic environment, the class sizes are relatively small, and that was one of the things that drew me to the academy. As captain, we are stated the classes are really small, and the teachers are very excited to work with you. So having such a small class is really unique for a college experience, and it makes it so the experience is very personal, and that you can get one-on-one tutoring when you need it. So you have different types of professors. There are the civilian professors, which are typically here for a long time, and they tend to be more subject matter experts. There's the permanent military professionals, who are typically lieutenant colonels or colonels who are here permanently as faculty to teach. They're also experts in their field. And then you have the military officers on 2 to 3 years assignments, and they spend a lot of time getting ready to lead, teach, and inspire you, but they also provide a really great and fresh perspective about what the Army looks and feels like right now, because they're fresh out the Army, ready to come teach you, and ready to go back and continue to serve. So there are 36 academic majors now. Of note, in the past there was only the engineering majors, and we kind of keep that same spirit alive by ensuring that everybody has an engineering minor, or engineering track is really what they're referred to. So even though I am a sociology major, I have an infrastructure track, which means that I've taken 3 courses related to infrastructure engineering, which is really cool, and I did not think I was going to like it at all. But I've actually been able to talk about sustainability and stay in touch with the more mathematical side, which is been pretty fun, and the teachers in the engineering departments tend to be really squared away and very willing to help. So, as I stated, I'm now a sociology major, which is kind of like psychology, but instead of thinking about it as one individual person's mind and what's going on with them, you would look at the entire society and examine them as if it was like one brain. I hope that makes sense, and if not, you could give it a Google. It's pretty cool. But before I was a sociology major, I was a philosophy major, and while that was really fun, I just wanted to switch it up. So I actually changed my major in my junior year, right before I went abroad to Morocco. I wouldn't suggest doing it like that, but that is just to demonstrate how flexible the academy is with allowing you to change your majors, especially because there's a lot of overlap in philosophy and sociology. So I hope that while we were talking, you also got to look over the different majors, and hopefully you see some that interest you. So this is a general outline of the classes you're going to be taking. So unlike a regular academy, there are a lot of different mandatory classes that you're going to have to take. Now the good thing about these is that you can take as many additional classes, basically, as your time allows without paying extra fees. So I know I jumped on that and took a lot more courses than I would be able to afford if I went to regular school. And while some of the classes seem kind of mundane and boring, and you're not going to probably want to be an engineering sequence your whole way through, if you come in with the right attitude, it actually does provide you with a really broad education that will be extremely applicable, or at least that's what they're telling me when you get out into the Army. And I have tons of faith that all the different things I learn will come in handy later. So hopefully we've gotten an idea to look over everything. So as I said, I went abroad. The foreign language that I chose was Arabic, and so I went to Morocco to study Arabic at a university there, which is really cool. So some of the things, they might not seem interesting, but you might find a love that you didn't know you have. Like maybe you'll figure out that you absolutely love foreign language, or you'll find a new love for chemistry or physics that you didn't know you had before. Even if you can't, there are nuggets of wisdom to be taken from each class. So we take philosophy because we talk about military ethics, and understanding different type of rocks and stuff could be beneficial depending on what your career is. So I've really enjoyed the broad education, and like the schedule outlines, there are different types of courses. So you're going to make sure that you're ready to work on the computer, and also that you get to do a lot of things in your major, and we have a lot of leadership classes, so you feel confident to talk about different leadership experiences and to work through them and reflect as you develop at West Point. So there are tons of NCAA sports. They get a lot of support, and we're really excited to have so many great athletes come to West Point. So there is basketball, lacrosse, rugby, track and field, and all of those sports are pretty open and welcoming environments. Some of the sports are easier to walk on to than others. So like the rugby team normally has a few open spots if you're interested. So that's really cool to think about. If you aren't on the NCAA sports, we do company athletics, and there are tons of club sports. So these are just some of the club sports. We'd like to highlight the boxing team, which always does a great job and is always producing leaders and winners. So if you're interested in boxing, you have a great opportunity to come here and try out something new, because as with everything at West Point, you won't have to pay for it. So you can try out a lot of things that you maybe weren't into or didn't know about before. Like team handball or even ultimate frisbee has been really fun and great things to try. So now moving on to this discussion about the military journey. So when you first come, you won't start off at the school. You'll start off doing BEAST, which is not quite school, it's just the military training part. So the 6 weeks that you're at cadet basic training, you're going to learn basic soldiering skills and also begin to be integrated into the Corps and to learn different traditions and ways of doing things. They're going to teach you how to be a plebe. And if you come in with the right attitude, you can learn a lot. It won't be as much fun as well, maybe it will be fun. But even if it isn't fun, you're going to learn a lot, and that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to take you, transform you from being a civilian into somebody who's ready to be a cadet. So then, in between your freshman and sophomore year, you will do CFT to get cadet field training. And this is where you apply all those tactical skills that you've been learning both in the classroom and during BEAST. If you come in with the right attitude and physically prepared, you can make lifelong friends. I still speak to everybody from my squad during CFT whenever I walk past them, and I'm not typically one who enjoys the field training. But it is a really great time, and that is where you get to understand all the different branches that we discussed really briefly before. They've all put on different showcases, and you can see what each one of them is about. After that, you'll get to do some other things, such as like cadet leadership development training, where you would go to a different unit to understand what the Army might look like for you, and you get to shadow a lieutenant around. You also do cadet troop leading training, CTLT, CLDT. They're both really intense. They can be intense depending on how you make it. And again, those are opportunities to showcase both your tactical proficiency and your leadership skills. So the bottom block is a little bit different in that now we're testing to see not only have you mastered the tactical skills, but are you ready to start leading in that capacity. And even when you don't think that you're ready, these are like great training opportunities for you to show not only your peers and your superiors that you're ready, but prove to yourself that you can do it, which I think is a really unique opportunity that we have here. Also, I'd like to note the individual advanced development programs. So those are really, really broad opportunities, not necessarily related to military opportunities. And then there's a military qualification school. So you go to airborne or air assault school before you even commission, which is really cool and a great opportunity. So those AIDs that are IADs that we talked about earlier, there's a lot of different opportunities. So as I already noted, I went to Morocco for a semester abroad, but I've done tons of internships. So I've worked in Washington, D.C., not at the White House, but I know a lot of people who did. I went to South Africa to go do some outreach programs there. And I have not done military qualification schools, but if that's what you're into, that's what you can pursue over the summer. And there are a lot of great broadening opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily have anywhere else. One of the great things is that as you're applying for them, you just have to make sure you're squared away. And they'll figure out basically all the paperwork, where you're going to stay, how to feed you, how to get you enough money to sustain yourself throughout that time. So you really just get to focus on having a great experience and learning as much as you can, which is something that I've really appreciated about being here. And basically, there's a lot of different things that go into coming here, but if you want to think about what it takes to be a part of the Long Green Line, we can continue to look through and figure out what it really means. But one of the things that I've appreciated about West Point is that they do seek out well-rounded candidates who demonstrate like academic excellence, leadership potential, and overall fitness. And so I think that that is all that I'm going to talk about for the cadet life. But I really appreciated y'all's time, and I really hope this was helpful.
All right. Awesome job by Cadet Clark. Thank you so much. That was very well done. All right. So now the moment that all of y'all have been waiting for. How do you get into West Point? Um, so yeah, really what you see here is we're looking for well-rounded individuals. So there is no like there's I'm going to go into I'll elaborate as to what specifically we're looking for, but well-rounded is the key takeaway here. So these are some of our eligibility requirements. So you must be a U.S. citizen. You must be between the ages of 17 and 23 years old when you enroll. You can't be married, and you can't have any obligations to support children. All right, so the first step to admissions is to open what we call the candidate questionnaire. And so essentially that's just basic information about yourself. It's your social security number, your congressional district, information about your school, some of your grades, your extracurriculars, stuff of that nature. And so that whole candidate concept that I was talking about, so this is what we use to evaluate applicants. But this is the secret recipe right here. So 60% of the evaluation is academics, 30% is leadership potential, and the final 10% is physical fitness. So within the academic portion, the two things that we're looking for is your GPA. You want to have a high GPA, and then your test scores as well. So this says with writing. I know that the SAT is starting to, I think June 1st, they will no longer be offering tests with writing. So obviously we're not going to require it with writing if it's not being offered by the testing authorities. But for the SAT and the ACT, we accept either or, and we do super score, so you're allowed to take the SAT and the ACT as many times as you want. So I know when I was applying to West Point, I don't want to tell you how many times I took the SAT, but it was a lot. And so for the leadership potential, so what exactly, how do we measure leadership potential? You can see on the slide here, there's a few different things that we use to measure that. But really the main thing that we're looking for in that is like propensity towards leadership. So in your extracurriculars and athletics, we encourage you to try to have leadership roles in those. So we'd rather you participate in like 1 or 2 sports and be a team captain than, have participation in 5 different sports but not hold any leadership roles within those. And the same thing applies to the extracurriculars, whether if you're part of a school club, try to be, president or vice president of that club. Run for the different student body government positions, student body president, vice president, treasury. Those are things that we're looking for in our applicants. So the other things that we use to evaluate leadership potential is what we call school official evaluations. So you will be required to receive an evaluation from your math, science, English, and PE teacher. And so don't get those confused with letters of recommendation. I see that far too many times. It's completely separate, and you'll see it. It's outlined in your portal once you've opened an application. So yeah, this it's pretty simple on your end. All you do is just input your teacher's information, and they'll fill out an evaluation on how you performed in that class and how you are in terms of like participation and if you are setting a good example in class and stuff like that. And then also the other thing that we use to evaluate your leadership potential are interviews. So you are required to receive an interview. The majority of the time, the interviews will be conducted by a field force member. And so I know that when I was going through the process, I had a field force member that I was working with, and she was extremely helpful through that process. But she was also the person that conducted that interview. And so the final portion of this evaluation, the final 10%, is fitness, and that's assessed through the CFA, or the Canada Fitness Assessment, and that consists of a 1-mile run, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, a shuttle sprint, and a basketball throw. And so you can go on to westpoint.edu, and you'll be able to find the standards. And then it's also in your portal for those of you that have already opened up applications. We'll have the standards that, the averages and the maximums. And of course, as a future West Pointer, as someone that's applying here, you always strive for the maximums. But if you land on the averages, that's all right. But that's the, essentially that's what we're looking for in a nutshell. And also as part of the application process, and we'll elaborate this in the following slides, but you must be medically qualified and you must receive a nomination. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to point out on this slide is the application deadline is January 31st. So it opened a couple of months ago at the end of January for your current juniors, and it will close on the 31st of 2022. Okay, so for the medical qualification piece, you must receive a medical evaluation from a Department of Defense Medical Evaluation Review Board certified doctor, and so it's all pretty self-explanatory. When you go into your portal, you create an account, and you can pick a doctor that is close to you, that is certified, to do that evaluation. So the evaluation deadline for this is April 15th, and after you've completed your physical, the status or the results of the physical will either be qualified, remedial, or disqualified. So qualified means you're good to go. Remedial means additional information is needed. So I know for mine, when I did it, I had a remedial. I think I needed to redo one of the tests. I wasn't drinking enough water or something like that. So I made sure that I drank like 10 gallons of water, redid the test, and everything was good, and I was medically qualified. But if you happen to fall into the disqualified category, it's not the end of the, it doesn't mean that that's the end of your journey. Waivers are offered on a case-by-case basis. So the other part that is required in order for you to receive admittance to West Point is you must receive a nomination. So there's two different kinds of nominations. There's service-connected and there's congressional. So for a congressional nomination, everybody qualifies for these. That's, as you can see on here, it's a congressman in your district, your state senators, and the vice presidential nomination as well. So I encourage you that currently have applications open, apply to all four of those. They're the primary modes of receiving a nomination to West Point. And you can just go onto that congressman's website or that senator, and it has their requirements. If you go onto their websites, it will have the list of requirements of what they require to apply for a nomination. It's not standard. It depends on the congressman, but most of them will require like essays. They're going to want to see your test scores, your extracurriculars, and some of them will require letters of recommendation as well. So I encourage you to go into those websites, see what the requirements are, so you can start putting all of that stuff together. So later on in the summer and stuff, you can complete those applications in a timely manner. And then the other kind of nomination that you can receive is what we call service-connected. So essentially, you have to meet these specific requirements that you can see on here in order to qualify for them. So for example, the children of career military, that's, so if your parent served for 20 years or is currently active duty, then you'd qualify for this. But again, I always see that candidates make the mistake of, oh, my dad retired after 30 years in the Army, and I qualify for the this nomination, therefore I'm not going to apply for the rest. So make sure you don't do that, because with that, like specifically for that one, I know in the past there were like 1,000+ candidates that qualify for that, and only 100 of them receive a nomination from that. So to maximize your ability to receive a nomination, make sure that you apply for all the ones that you're eligible for. Alright, so for the application strategy, you can see on here that early is underlined. So the sooner you complete the application, the better. And I've seen this, so I've been working in admissions for 2 years now, and I see this far too many times where candidates wait till the last minute to complete everything. The West Point application is not like your traditional application. It takes time. You're also relying on teachers to and other school authorities to complete documentation for you. So the sooner you complete this stuff, the better your application will be. And like with the CFA and stuff, nobody wants to go out and run in 5-degree weather. So knock that CFA out in the summer. So early, that's the key takeaway. And then also study for the SAT and ACT. I know this year last year was difficult because of COVID. A lot of candidates weren't able to take it, but I think things are starting to get better. But take the time now, study for it, so when you do take it, you perform well and you don't have to continuously keep having to take it. And then lastly, contact your field force numbers. A lot of them are going to reach out to you, but they're awesome resources to have, and they will really help you along the process as well. And then just to reiterate again, application deadline is the 31st of January, and the medical deadline is the 15th of April. Alright, so before you apply, there's a couple of questions that you should ask yourself. So as you've heard multiple times, West Point is awesome, but it's a challenging experience. So you really have to want to be here in order for your experience here to be a fun experience. So do you want to be a leader? Are you mentally tough? Do you like challenges? Are you interested in serving as an officer in the Army? Those are the kinds of questions that you should be asking yourself. And if the answer to those is yes, then you should absolutely open up an application. And I just briefly wanted to touch on our summer leadership experience. So I think the deadline for that has already reached. But really just it's an opportunity for candidates to come to West Point. This typically occurs in June, and they're able to come here for a week and just experience what life as a cadet would be like. So it's for juniors going into their senior year, and from everyone that I've spoken with that was a part of SLE, they really enjoyed it, and it really helps give them more information. So it allows them to know, okay, is West Point a good fit for me, or should I go to a different school? Alright, so make sure that you stay connected with us. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can always find additional information on westpoint.edu/admissions, where we'll keep you updated with the current admissions events that are taking place. And as changes are occurring due to COVID and all of that, it will be posted on our website as well. So now we're going to get to questions. I know that there's a bunch of questions waiting for me over here. I'm going to try to answer each and every one of y'all's questions. So just want to let y'all know y'all have been awesome tonight. I see there's a lot of good questions over here. So let me scroll up. I want to make sure that nobody leaves without having their questions answered. Okay, this is from Logan. Has a decision been reached on the status of SLE as to whether it's in person or online? So no, that decision has not quite been made yet, but like I mentioned earlier, as soon as it is, it will be posted on our website. So just continue to check. We just want to make sure that at the end of the day, the candidates and everybody is remaining safe. So we want to, we just gotta see how things are with COVID before that decision is made. But hopefully, you will find out pretty soon. Okay. So some of these questions were already answered. Um, so we got. So this one is from Karen. My student is thinking about the National Guard and completing basic before senior. Would that be beneficial or not in helping with being accepted to West Point? So at the end of the day, everybody has to meet the West Point standard to be able to get into West Point. So your students more than free to join the National Guard and completing basic, but they must be qualified academically. They must receive a nomination, and they must um, qualify medically as well. All right, I'm just scrolling here trying to find some more questions. Okay. So where will there be sports camp this summer? This is coming from Jenna. Jenna, that is a great question. So I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'm assuming you're not talking about SLE, but actual. I know that there are different camps that are held during the summer for like sports and such. So I'm not sure about that. I want to say no, but I will. Yeah, I will have to get back to you on that one. So this one is from Brian. How hard is it to get into West Point? Oh, I just gave you the secret recipe to get in. Leadership, academics, and physical fitness. So if you meet all those requirements, it's not difficult to get into West Point. Let's see. Rafael Renge is on here. Hey Ralph, how's it going? Alright. Okay, so some of these have been answered. Let me keep going. Yeah, so I think there was one asking if the SAT and ACT will be waived as a requirement. So just to reiterate, no, as of right now, we are still requiring the SAT and ACT. So that's still a requirement. So make sure that you're studying and taking those and signing up to take those tests. Okay, so this is coming from Karen. My student always wanted to attend West Point, but reality of grade slipping and how selective West Point is, we are anticipating Plan B of split up slash National Guard or reaching out. Okay, I think that wasn't really a question. It was kind of a follow up from the last one. So this one's coming from Steve. Do you take prior military? Absolutely, we do. Yeah, so I know that during my time here, we had at least like 100 prior service cadets. So yeah, we absolutely welcome and encourage all prior service military individuals that qualify to apply to West Point. So this one's from Connor. Do you choose or do you send the SAT as well as the ACT to West Point, or do you choose whichever one you are better at? So you can choose whichever one you're better at. You can send both of them. At the end of the day, we're going to only judge you off of your best scores. So this one's from Ian. Is it common for applicants to apply to more than one service or one of the military academies? I had heard that it is best for applicants to consider only military branches as a career. Is this true, or is it appropriate for me to apply to multiple academies? Why would you want to apply anywhere other than West Point, Ian? No, I'm kidding. So that is very common for candidates to apply to the other service academies. So we love to give each other a hard time. And of course, West Point is the best, but the other service academies are close seconds. So you can absolutely apply to the other ones as well. Okay, this one is from Leah about the writing portion. So yeah, since it's being phased out, no, we will not be requiring it. Um, so I think this. All right, we're getting through these. These are all great questions, everyone. These are all great questions. So this one's coming from Steve. My daughter is in elementary school. Can I get an application? No, Steve, she's a little bit young, but it's never too soon to start to go into a website. See the kinds of things we're looking for, and start you know getting her file in a sense prepared. So it's always good to know what we're looking for. So when you get to high school, you can start knocking those things out. But yeah, applying in middle school, that's way too early. Okay, so this one's coming from Stephanie. My son has his DAWMERB this Friday. This is the last piece of his application. How long afterwards will it take to know if he's accepted? So it really just depends. So though that DAWMERB process is a requirement to get into West Point, they're their own separate entity. So we don't know how long that's going to take for them to do their part. And if he comes back medically qualified by uh, the 15th of April, then it all just depends on the rest of his file. So I wish I could give a more straightforward answer, but it just depends on multiple factors. Okay, so this question is coming from Connor. Are the school official evaluations part of the second step kit? Yes, they are. And so for everyone, for candidates that meet a certain threshold, the second step kit is opening up in June. So in the next couple of months, that portion will be open. And for those of y'all, if it doesn't open up quite then, it probably means that maybe you need to take the SAT and get your and improve on it a little bit. So so yeah, if it's not open yet, you can reach that threshold, and you can always reach out to your admissions officer, and they will tell you what exactly needs to be done for that second portion of the application to open. All right, so we got a couple SLE questions. When will you find out? So you should be finding out in the next few weeks. So you should find out in April. Um, all right, this is coming from Natalie. Can we still submit SAT scores to be considered for SLE? So if you haven't already opted to be part of SLE, I think at this point it's too late. But if you have a file that's already open and you opted to be a part of SLE and you've already you can always update your scores and stuff like that. So that's fine for you to do that. Okay, this one is coming from this one's coming from Raquel. If you want to go on an LDS mission, can you go for a year, defer, and return to West Point? Yes, you can. So one of my roommates while I was at West Point, he did that. So he attended for 2 years, then he went on his mission, and then he came back and completed his time at West Point. So this one's from Sam. If one scores in the 1400s in the SAT, should one retake in order to be competitive for admissions? So in 1400s, that's pretty good. That's really good. But it really just depends on how the rest of that person's file looks. So in cases like that, it's always best to just reach out to your admissions officer, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. So this one's from Alyssa. Do we need to know our major going into our plebe year? So as was mentioned by Cadet Clark earlier, so yeah, you will choose your major, your plebe year, and it'll be towards the end of your plebe year, and you have exposure to a lot of different subjects prior to. But at the end of the day, if you choose a major and you decide you want to change it, you'll be able to change it as many times as you want. As long as you're able to graduate by the end of the 4 years, you can absolutely change your major. Okay, this is from Jacob. What GPA should a student have to be considered? So really, anyone with any GPA can open an application, and it just depends on how the rest of your file looks. I know I keep saying that, but there's no like one strict GPA that means you're automatically getting into West Point. It's just a combination of those different factors that we've spoken about. But obviously, having the higher the GPA, the better your file will look. Okay, so this is from Phyllis. For a junior, the application deadline is January 31st, 2022. What year is the medical deadline? Is it April? Yeah, so for the current juniors, the deadline is January 2022. The medical deadline is going to be April 15th, 2022. So this is from Alyssa. What would you say should be the main focus when applying to West Point? So those three things that I discussed: academics, leadership, physical. It's hard to say that you should exclusively focus on one versus the other. You should really focus on all of them. But as you can see, the academic piece is 60%, leadership is 30, and physical fitness is 10. So the academic is worth the most amount of points. But at the end of the day, you need to be well rounded. So if you're the best person academically, you have perfect test scores and everything, you have all these leadership roles, but you can't pass the CFA, then you're not going to be able to get into West Point. So it just depends, but focusing on all of them is important. This is from Ian. Do I have any tips for the basketball throw? That is a great question, Ian. So this is kind of a funky thing. I know the first time I ever threw a basketball while kneeling was when I was practicing to take the CFA. Excuse me. So what I would say is just practice it. It's not one of those things that you typically do. So it might be a little bit difficult at first, but the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And you can find videos on YouTube and on your portal that show how you should throw the basketball. And so as long as you're practicing it the way that you're supposed to, I think you'll be fine. Are plebes allowed to have cars on campus? This is coming from Connor. I wish, Connor, but no, they are not allowed to have cars. So the cadets can bring vehicles onto West Point after spring break their junior year. So I didn't bring a car into West Point until the summer going into my senior year. But the cool thing is you always have firsties that have vehicles, so you just got to make friends with the firsties and they'll let you borrow their car. That was the secret that I learned while I was here. Alright, this is another medical one from Trip. The medical test that is due in April is due in the candidate's senior year, correct? Yes. Yes, that is correct. Okay, these are all good questions. See, I think a lot of these are getting answered by First Lieutenant Porter. He's doing a great job. Okay, this one's from Jacob. Are there a limited amount of foreign languages that you can study? That is a great question, Jacob. I know there's no limited amount that you can study. I think it all just depends on how much you can fit onto your plate. So if you're trying to take like all of the foreign languages that we have to offer, I think that'd be very difficult to do. But as long as you're able to complete all the classes that you're required to complete for your major and all the core classes and everything else, you can always put additional classes onto your plate if you'd like. So if taking German isn't enough for you and you want to throw some Mandarin on there, absolutely. So this is from Kara. How long is the process to get a medical waiver on average? So again, that depends on multiple things. It depends on what that individual was disqualified for and the information that's available on hand for the doctors to evaluate. It depends on how many people are in line waiting for a waiver. So I can't really say. It really just depends on the condition. But that just means that's why it's so important to make sure that you're doing these stuff early. So as soon as the second step kit is open and you're eligible and you're able to have access to it because you meet those requirements, schedule your DOMR because the sooner you get that stuff done, the sooner you get the results from that, the sooner your waiver can be submitted if you're competitive enough, and the sooner you'll get your results. So early, early, early. That's the theme here. I see a comment from Ian saying it's all right. Navy is my safety school. That made me laugh. So this is from, excuse me if I misspell your name. I want to say Ixon. The question is, does not being in varsity sports affect your chance of admissions? So what I would say is, if your school doesn't offer certain sports, we would absolutely take that into consideration. But if you are able to try out for a team and to get a varsity letter, that is absolutely looks good on your application. So if you have the ability to do that, I would encourage you to try out for some of the different sports teams that your school has to offer and try to get some varsity letters in them. Alright. This is from Connor. Would having one concussion from sports classify me as remedial in Dahmer? So I'm not a doctor, so I really can't answer that. So it just depends. It just depends. But you get that medical completed early, you'll be able to get some answers. All right. So this is another one from Phyllis. Is there a workout program / training program you can recommend to prepare for the CFA? Um, so if you go onto the admissions website under the Department of or yeah, DPE, the Department of Physical Education, I know that they have a couple recommended workouts that you can do under there. But if you're looking for, I know that I have a workout that I've put together for some of the candidates that I've worked with. So you can also always reach out to your admissions officer. I think the majority of them have something that they can send you. All right. All right. This is a great one from Carrie. Um, what if girls state and an invitation to SLE conflict? Which is more important? So I would say attend girls state. So that has an effect on your application versus SLE. While we do encourage you to attend SLE, and it's an awesome event for you to attend, it doesn't have any bearing on your application. So if I had to pick between those two, I would go to girls state. Okay, so we have a couple questions that were already answered earlier. Um, okay, looks like we're getting towards the bottom of this. Okay, here's one from Kim. How do homeschool students approach the school official evaluations? Ooh, that's a great question. So we do understand that homeschoolers are not going to have different teachers for all the different subjects. So what I would say is if you're a homeschooler or if you are homeschooled and you're part of a co-op, then you can go through your co-op instructors to complete the school official evaluations. And this is something that, because each homeschooler is going to be slightly different, so reaching out to your admissions officer, they'll really be able to help you out with this. But I know that one of the parents can write one of the evaluations, and if they take like a PE class or something like athletic somewhere, then that individual can knock out that piece. And for some of the others, maybe it could be like a pastor or something like that. But it really just depends on that specific individual's case and what option that they have. So in that exact situation, reach out to your admissions officer, but we'll be able to come up with some sort of solution so that all of the SOEs can be received for for the applicant. Okay, so I think we have time for 2 more questions. Y'all have been asking some really great questions tonight. Alright, let me scroll up a little bit. Actually, I don't think we have any more questions. Okay, so we have one from Amy about knowing when students will know about SLE. So as mentioned earlier, they should know about that in the next 4 weeks. So they should be finding out sometime in the next month. Okay, so I think that pretty much concludes everything. I'm not seeing any more questions. Thank you again. Y'all have been phenomenal tonight. Once again, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to like and comment. Thank you again. Y'all have been great. And go Army, beat Navy. See y'all next week.